Hi, this is Tara. Welcome to my course on Patanjali's Yogasutras. This is the introduction. For those of you who've heard the original version, yes, I am redoing them from scratch because I received a lot of feedback, especially from people who are new to yoga, that it's pretty sort of difficult to follow. My first bit of advice on that is that yes, the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are quite difficult to follow because they're designed to be that way. They're written that way. They're aphoristic. They're cryptic. They're mystical. They're not at all meant to be direct and easily understood. Also, being of the nature of tantra, they reveal themselves over time. So have patience, and all of us are struggling equally. There's a reason why there are so many bhashyas or commentaries on the Yoga Sutras. So don't beat yourself up about it. So here we go again, and hopefully this will be a little more helpful to you. So what is it we're doing? I will try and explain each sutra in each session, and I will keep each under 20 minutes for easy listening and comprehension. And hopefully, it'll help. We're looking at 6 bhashyas simultaneously. So we're looking at Maharishi Ved Vyasa's commentary as translated by Sri Ramaprasada, Swami Satyananda, Swami Vivekananda, Sri BKS Iyengar, Osho, and Barbara Stoller Miller. Of course, there are many more commentaries that you could look at. Sri Ramanujacharya, King Bhojadeva. There are so many, commentaries that are accessible and available. I've chosen these so that we have a range from the traditional to the more modern interpretations. So let's understand the basics first. There are 195 sutras. What are sutras? Sutras are basically concise, pithy, meaningful, and sometimes mystical aphorisms. They're written in an almost poetic way. So they're not at all meant to be direct and clearly instructional. And they are clearly instructional. But these are classified into 4 sections in the book of the Yoga Sutras, and these are the Sadhana Pada, the Samadhi Pada, the Vibhuti Pada, and the Kaivalya Pada. The Samadhi Pada has 51 sutras, the Sadhana Pada has 55 sutras, and the Vibhuti Pada has 56 sutras, and the Kaivalya Pada has, I think, 34 sutras. The Samadhi Pada is the foundation. It is what we'll also be beginning with, and it is an instruction on definition, terms, the obstacles, the practice, how to approach the practice. And the Sadhana Pada, it's more details the kleshas or afflictions and obstacles. It gives us an overview of the Ashtanga or the 8 limbs, and it also gives us details of the first 3. It's more focused on the first 3 Ashtanga limbs. Then you have the Vibhuti Pada. The Vibhuti Pada focuses on the remaining 5 limbs and the development of the Siddhis or the special powers. And the Kaivalya Pada basically takes everything that we have learned, clarifies our perception, and moves us towards liberation. This is how the Yoga Sutras are basically structured. What is yoga? You must have heard it said many times before that yoga is basically communion or union. But what is it we're coming to union with? Now, yoga is essentially the executive arm or the practice of Sankhya philosophy. And Sankhya philosophy is essentially dualistic. What is Sankhya philosophy? See, there is Purusha and there is Prakriti. Some people refer to this as the Atma and Jivatma. Some people refer to it as, the higher being and nature. But essentially, Purusha is in close proximity to Ishvara or the divine. So when Purusha gets entangled with Prakriti, that is matter, it becomes manifest. And as it becomes manifest, it splits. This process of splitting from the unified self is known as Viyoga. What does it split into? It splits into Mano, Buddhi, and Ahankara. Together, these 3, mind, Buddhi, intellect, Ahankara, ego, get called as consciousness. Consciousness is Chitta. So this Chitta is basically the problem of yoga. It is how to unify the split. Now, when we're able to sort of overcome this chitta, we attain what is known as Swarupa. Swarupa is the original body, it is the spiritual body. It is not yet the liberated body, it is the body that has overcome chitta. That is the is not subject anymore to the senses, to the split, to the fragments. This is, of course, a very simplified view that I'm giving you. It's a little bit more complex than that. So, this consciousness, looked at from the subjective or emotional point of view, it is dualistic. Now, we've used this term before, dualistic. What is dualistic? Dualistic is subject to opposites. So we're subject to pleasure and we're subject to pain. We're subject to these ups and downs of life, right? And the point is to conquer that. Now, how do we conquer that? And what is the problem with being dualistic? Okay, we are subject to different kinds of perceptions. So we have true perceptions, we have false perceptions, we have hallucinations, we have dreams, and we are in a state of dissolution, basically. We're in a state of illusion, sorry. So how do we overcome the chitta? We do this through abhyasa. Abhyasa is practice or study. What is it abhyasa of? We use viveka or discrimination, we use vairagya or detachment, and we attain samadhi or absorption. And there are two kinds of samadhi, that is sampragnata and asampragnata. Sampragnata is when the external world ceases and the internal is still active. Asampragnata is when both cease. And how do we undertake this practice, this path of practice? Is through effort and devotion. Okay, so that is basically what we do in yoga and what yoga is. But why should we undertake this? Why can't we just live with our illusions? Why can't we live this dualistic life? Why should we do this? So there's an insightful line in BKS Iyengar's commentary in which he says the object of the Yogasutras is the seer, as opposed to, say, the object of the Brahma Sutras, which is Brahma. So the object of yoga is to know oneself. Who is the seer? The seer is oneself. And so, which is the Purusha that has become entangled with Prakriti and become enmeshed and forgotten itself. So we are not really in union with something else or someone else. We're essentially in union with ourselves. We're rediscovering our original nature. And this is the sort of reason why we undertake this path. So there is, yoga is essentially practice. And the theoretical framework, that is the Yoga Sutras, is just the structure under which we practice. Now consider this sort of like Hindustani classical music, where you have the swaras, which form the structure. You have the ragas that give you, when you can and what you can. But essentially within that framework, you're free to experiment, you're free to understand, you're free to interpret, and you're free to practice. So this is essentially how yoga works. But it is important to understand the framework. It is important to understand where the framework changes, what it's telling you, where it's guiding you, what is the umbrella it's providing you. This is why we study the Yoga Sutras. Okay. Now, the Bhashyas or the commentaries of all these gurus and masters are really insightful, and a lot of them differ on several points and they sort of resonate on various points. Personally, my favorite is Swami Satyananda, because I find him very concise and very clear. But I also really enjoy Osho, Barbara Stroller Miller, BKS Iyengar, Ved Vyasa, of course, you should read, and Swami Vivekananda. I find him a little, difficult myself, but I know that he's very, very popular. So each goes into the definitions of yoga, the categorizations into the Bahiranga, the external, and Antaranga, the internal practices. In Ashtanga, what are the Bahiranga? The first 5 practices are the external practices. That is Yama, social code; Niyama, the personal code; Asana, the seating; Pranayama, or posture. Pranayama, I don't like to call it breath, it's more the metabolic, the basal fire, the primal fire of life that is within you. Pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal. Now these 5 establish the basis for the next three, which are the antaranga or the internal practices. What are these? These are dharana, that is concentration, dhyana, meditation, samadhi, which is absorption or super consciousness. Now, Swami Satyananda categorizes Patanjali's yoga as under the framework of Raja Yoga. And Raja Yoga would include things like Kundalini Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. There are different forms of yoga, of which, according to Swami Satyananda, the yoga that we practice as yoga, Patanjali's yoga, is just one. So it's important to keep that in mind. And the 8 limbs, basically the Ashtanga that we have looked at, what is their purpose, right? They steady the koshas. What are the koshas? The koshas are the layers of the human birth or human body. And these are Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. If I said that right, Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. Annamaya kosha is the food. The food that we take in Anna is what creates the corporeal body, the physical material body. Pranamaya kosha, the mind, creates the metabolic fire, the fire body, the breath body. Manomaya kosha is the mind. The Vijnanamaya kosha is the intellect and is created by the buddhi, and Anandamaya kosha is bliss, that is the essential nature, right? And what happens when these koshas are steadied, right? When these koshas are steadied, we're able to attain a certain equilibrium. What are the 5 yamas? How do we do this? Through the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas. So the 5 yamas are satya, truthfulness; ahimsa, non-violence; asteya, which is honesty; brahmacharya, which is abstinence; aparigraha, non-clinging, non-possessiveness. The 5 niyamas are shaucha, cleanliness; santosha, contentment; tapas, austerity; swadhyaya, which is self-study or self-drivenness; and ishvara pramidhana, which is surrender to the divine will. So the niyamas the yamas create external equilibrium, the niyamas create internal equilibrium. When we have yamas and niyamas in place, the koshas become balanced. When the koshas become balanced, all the 5 bodies become balanced. And when the 5 bodies become balanced, we're able to sort of balance the gunas, gain sort of mastery over the material world, rajas, sattva, tamas, through the 5 external senses, the 5 materials, earth, water, air, fire, in the world, and therefore we come to a certain balance in our lives. So Osho correctly points out in his commentary that even if you recite the Yogasutras backwards and forwards, you're not a yogi. And as my guru likes to say, even a monkey can perform, calisthenics and acrobatics and can stand on its head. That doesn't make you a yogi either. So what is it that makes you a yogi? Becoming a yogi is the path of just being centered. Okay, so when you are centered, the capacity for discipline, the capacity to be a disciple, the capacity for equilibrium, the capacity for mastery, or in all of these contexts, that is what makes you a yogi. Okay, so BKS Iyengar points out that Patanjali's Yoga Sutra was not the originating factor, and also Swami Satyananda, who says that it was Brahma through the ages of sage Kapila, who created Sankhya philosophy, and then through the ages of Patanjali that created the Yoga Sutras. So it is believed that the Yoga Sutras and yoga itself has very divine origins. And Barbara Stoller Miller points out that yoga is essentially tantra, and she refers to the story of how when Patanjali's mother was making her offerings to the sun, a serpent falls into her hand, and that is how sage Patanjali is born. Pata meaning serpent and fallen, and Anjali meaning offering. So because it has come out of the sage Patanjali was basically born to an austere and woman in an auspicious fashion. Therefore, it's a story that points to the tantric nature of yoga, and you'll find this as you read or study or practice yoga or the Yoga Sutras, that you may not understand everything as you read it or listen to it. But the nature of Tantra is to reveal itself to an ardent student the more you practice. So don't worry if you haven't understood a particular word or a particular sutra, or you're not cracking a particular asana. Just have patience for it, focus on the equilibrium, focus on balance, and you'll find that as you start walking this path with effort and devotion, yoga opens itself up to you, because the nature of Tantra is to reveal itself to a student. So as you can tell, the purpose of this course is to help a student understand that yoga is much more than just an exercise or holding a position, and to come to a sort of holistic understanding in this sort of marketplace of what yoga has become, of what yoga is to you and how to approach yoga mentally, spiritually, as well as physically. So I hope this is really helpful to you. Do keep sending me feedback, it helps me improve the recordings and teachings. And I will start uploading the Yoga Sutra one by one, hopefully on a daily basis. Thank you for listening.